The plane hummed softly as it soared through the clouds, carrying passengers to their destinations. Among them was an 8-year-old boy, Ijin Yu, sitting beside his parents and younger sister, Dayun. His mother smiled warmly as she handed him a snack while his father adjusted his seatbelt. Dayun, only a few years younger than Ijin, leaned against her brother, her small hands clutching a stuffed animal. It was an ordinary trip, a family vacation that promised laughter and memories. Ijin's world was simple and peaceful, filled with the love of his family. But life has a way of shattering peace when you least expect it. The plane jolted violently. Passengers gasped as the cabin lights flickered. The hum of the engines turned into a deafening roar, and the plane began to shake uncontrollably. Ijin's mother grabbed his hand, her face pale with fear. "Stay close to me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Before Ijin could respond, the world around him erupted into chaos. The plane plummeted, screams filled the air, and everything went black. When Ijin opened his eyes, he was surrounded by wreckage. The once pristine plane was now a twisted heap of metal, scattered across a desolate landscape. Smoke rose into the sky, and the air was thick with the stench of burning fuel. "Mom, Dad," Ijin called out, his voice hoarse. There was no response. He stumbled through the wreckage, his small hands trembling as he searched for his family, but all he found was silence. Days passed. Ijin wandered through the barren land, his stomach aching with hunger and his throat dry from thirst. He didn't know where he was or how to get home. All he knew was that he had to keep moving. Eventually he stumbled upon a group of people. Relief washed over him as he approached them, hoping for help. But these were not saviors. They were mercenaries, hardened men who saw the world as a battlefield. At first, they ignored him, dismissing him as just another orphan of war. But when they saw the determination in his eyes, they decided to take him in, not out of kindness, but because they saw potential. Ijin was thrust into a world of violence and survival. The mercenaries trained him, teaching him how to fight, how to kill, and how to survive. At first he resisted, clinging to the memories of his family, but the harsh reality of his new life soon broke him. To live, he had to adapt. To survive, he had to fight. Years passed, and the boy who once dreamed of a peaceful life became a soldier, a mercenary, a killer. He fought in countless battles, his hands stained with blood. He became a master of combat, a strategist, a weapon. But even in the darkest moments, he held on to a single hope, the faint memory of his family. Then, one day, the war ended. The mercenary group disbanded, and Ijin was left with a choice: to continue living as a soldier or to return to the life he had lost. He chose to go home. At 18 years old, Ijin returned to Korea. He was no longer the boy who had boarded that plane 10 years ago. He was a man shaped by war, carrying the scars of his past. When he arrived at the airport, he was greeted by his grandfather, an old man with trembling hands and tear-filled eyes. "Ijin, is it really you?" the old man asked, his voice breaking. Ijin nodded. "It's me, Grandpa. I'm home." Tears streamed down the old man's face as he embraced his grandson. For 10 years, he had believed Ijin was dead. To see him alive was a miracle, but the reunion was bittersweet. Ijin learned that his parents had died in the crash. The only family he had left was his grandfather and his younger sister, Dayun, who had grown up without him. When Ijin saw Dayun for the first time, she was sitting at the dining table, her head buried in a textbook. She looked up when she heard him enter, her eyes widening in shock. "Oppa?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Ijin smiled softly. "It's me, Dayun." She ran to him, tears streaming down her face as she hugged him tightly. "I thought you were gone. I thought I'd never see you again." "I'm here now," Ijin said, his voice steady. "I'm not going anywhere." For the first time in 10 years, Ijin felt a sense of peace. He was home. He had his family. But the scars of his past were not so easily erased. The next day, Ijin enrolled in high school. It was a strange, unfamiliar world for someone who had spent the last decade on the battlefield. The classrooms, the uniforms, the chatter of students, it was all so different from the life he had known. But Ijin was determined to fit in, to live a normal life. He kept his head down, avoided trouble, and tried to blend in. That was easier said than done. On his first day, he witnessed a group of bullies harassing a student in the hallway. They shoved the boy against a locker, laughing as he cowered in fear. Ijin stepped forward. "Stop!" The bullies turned to him, their laughter fading. "What did you say?" one of them sneered. "Leave him alone," Ijin said, his voice calm but firm. The leader of the group smirked. "And what are you gonna do about it?" Ijin didn't answer. In a flash, he moved, grabbing the bully's wrist and twisting it with precision. The bully cried out in pain, dropping to his knees. The other bullies stared in shock, unsure of what to do. Ijin's cold gaze swept over them. "Do you want to try me?" he asked. They shook their heads, backing away. Ijin released the leader's wrist and turned to the boy they had been harassing. "Are you okay?" he asked. The boy nodded, his eyes wide with gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered. Ijin nodded and walked away, leaving the bullies to nurse their bruised egos. By the end of the day, everyone at school was talking about the new student who had taken down the bullies with ease. But Ijin didn't care about the rumors. He wasn't looking for attention or trouble. All he wanted was to protect his family and live a quiet life. That evening, Ijin returned home to find his grandfather waiting for him at the dinner table. "How was your first day?" the old man asked, his voice warm. "It was fine," Ijin replied, keeping his answers short. Dayun, sitting across from him, looked at him curiously. "Oppa, you're so quiet. Did something happen?" Ijin shook his head. Nothing happened. But deep down, he knew that his past would not let him go so easily. The skills he had honed on the battlefield, the instincts he had developed, they were a part of him now, and in a world where danger could strike at any moment, those skills might be the only thing standing between his family and the threats that lurked in the shadows. This was Ijin Yu's new battlefield, and he was ready for whatever came next.